Okay. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen, excellencies. Thank you very much for coming to this session. And the session is reflecting on the IGF perspectives from the leadership panel, where our panelists are made up of the leadership panel. And it's going to be a 75-minute session, just to make sure we're all in the right room. And as you know, just hands up, who does not know what the leadership panel is? Okay, so to be very brief, the leadership panel was established in 2022, and it was initiated by the Secretary General, and the leadership panel provides strategic inputs and advice to the IGF. It champions the IGF and it supports both the high-level and at-large stakeholder engagement at the IGF. It exchanges IGF outputs and makes sure that IGF outputs also reach other fora and brings messages from other fora back into the IGF. The leadership panel also participates in fundraising, and I'm pleased to say that this year has been, I think we have raised the most money into the IGF Trust Fund, and part of that is because of the leadership panel's efforts. And the leadership panel also speaks about the IGF at various gatherings such as GSM, etc. So we're very grateful to have the leadership panel, and unfortunately the chair of the leadership panel, Vincent, cannot be with us today, and also the vice chair, Maria Ressa, cannot be with us today as well because of varying other commitments that they just cannot get out of. Part of the leadership panel's work as well is that they have produced a paper, The Internet We Want, and that paper is available on the IGF website. If you go to the About leadership panel, and you see the list of the leadership panel and also the paper, The Internet We Want. We're also grateful for the way the leadership panel has also spearheaded and also brought awareness to the WSIS+20 process as well, and garnered views and encourage people to participate in the WSIS+20 process. And the last thing I want to say about the leadership panel work is the leadership panel works very closely with the MAG. So then they are separate from the MAG, but they do cooperate with them, with the MAG, and it's not as if one is above the other and just gives directions to the MAG. Not at all. It's a very cooperative environment with the multi-stakeholder advisory group. Now, let me just introduce the members that are here, our panelists. So, and again, apologies for if I don't say names perfectly. I am well known for that. So, first of all, our speakers today are Mr. Takuo Umagawa. He's Vice Minister of International Affairs and Communications. Am I saying your name right? You can also re-say it. And then we have Marianne Wilmison, State Secretary, Ministry of Digitization and Public Governance of Norway. And as you know, the IGF this year was in Norway, and her team, excellent cooperation, very smooth, and we managed to do it in 6 months, and I think it's very few teams that would have managed that, but Norway is just one of those that everything was so organized, and thank you very much. And then we have Lisa Foe, who is Chief Executive Officer at GIANT. And we have Mr. Joseph Gordon-Levitt, who's an actor, producer, and founder of Hit Record. And we have Maria Fernanda Garza, who is the honorary chair of the International Chamber of Commerce and is from Mexico. He's a small business owner from Mexico. And very happy to have you here as well. And online, we have Yubega Sesan. He's Executive Director of Paradigm Initiatives. If you wave. Thank you. And Mr. Christoph Schubert, who is the former Secretary of State, Republic of Poland, and plenipotentiary of the UN IGF 2021. As you know, we had the IGF in Poland in 2021. So he was the lead and made sure that the IGF in Poland was a success. And again, very well organized, and we're very grateful for his efforts as well. So to start off with, we'll have a brief round of opening reflections from speakers. And I'm going to ask them to reflect upon a key evolution in the IGF since 2022, or a practice or key IGF approach they see as strengthening the IGF's role today. So I will start in the same order, I suppose, yes, to go. So Mr. Himagawa, Vice Minister, please.
Hello, Excellencies, distinguished colleagues. My name is Himagawa, Vice Minister of Ministry of Internal Affairs and Communications, Japanese government. And I'm very glad to be here, and thank you for having me here. Actually, I was supposed to be coming late, but flight was so good. I'm very happy about it. So since joining the IGF community and hosting the IGF in Kyoto 2 years ago, I have seen how the forum has evolved into a more inclusive and impactful platform. The Kyoto meeting demonstrated the strength of the multi-stakeholder approach, especially in addressing emerging issues such as AI governance. My participation in DIAT last year and also this year made me affirm this trend. NRI and the intersessional work are now driving locally rooted discussions into global perspectives, realizing virtual dialogues. Diversity strengthens trust and resilience in the current digital landscape facing increasing risk of fragmentation. As we reflect WSIS+20, I believe these practices, collaboration across regions, and continued engagement beyond annual meetings are key to shaping a stronger IGF ecosystem for the future. And leadership panels should remain as the guiding body for the whole framework. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Vice Minister. And also, yes, I forgot to mention, Japan hosted the IGF, and Japan is also a very, very strong supporter in the international environment of the IGF and the multi-stakeholder systems. Thank you very much. Marianne, please.
Yes, as you mentioned, Norway hosted the IGF 2025 in June, and I think just like Imagawa here, Mr. Imagawa, we also saw that the IGF demonstrated the importance and impact of the multi-stakeholder model, and also how the IGF contributes to the global cooperation of internet and digital development. I'm very happy to see that the forum has been recognized, reinforced, and strengthened in the WSIS+20 resolution. And it's imperative to keep the IGF as a vital arena for collaboration and dialogue, with inclusive representation from all stakeholders, especially marginal groups and underrepresented regions. I also believe that to ensure the continuous impact of IGF, the forum's program and agenda need to be sure to reflect the opportunities and challenges in the digital space at the time of the forum, making it relevant for participants to attend. And also, just lastly, I want to take this opportunity as well as a host country to thank also both the leadership panel, the MAG, and the IGF Secretariat for their efforts and their ability to establish a very engaging and interesting program this year with tons of inspiring speakers. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Ms. Please.
I think since 2022, what we've seen is not only what happens in IGF, but also around IGF. We've seen new technologies are emerging even faster than ever. And I have seen IGF picking up all of this, both in the way we discuss the technology as such, but also in the way we're discussing the regulation, the impact, the influence on all the users worldwide. So I see a stronger IGF in topics. I also see stronger national and regional IGFs, and they are feeding even more than ever back into the international IGF. And having that ecosystem, having that strength is just something that I think we should appreciate in a strong multi-stakeholder model.
Joe, I know you're new, but please give us your...
Thank you. Yeah, well, first of all, I just want to thank you, Cheng Tai, and everybody at the IGF for inviting me here. Maybe just a little bit of context of what I'm doing here. I do work in entertainment, but I've been paying close attention to technology for a long time. I ran a VC-backed media tech startup, and I've also been doing a lot of activism and advocacy around AI for the last number of years. I've co-written a movie that I'll be shooting for Netflix next year, which gave me the opportunity to speak to a great many of the foremost experts, technologists, people in policy, people that work in the big businesses. I've had a chance to really immerse myself in the industry over the past number of years. And while I am quite optimistic about all the benefits that the technology can bring, I'm also quite concerned about some pitfalls we seem to be heading for. Frankly, sometimes in the context of the United States conversation, things can feel sort of grim, which is why when I came to Norway earlier this year and met so many people from outside of the context of the United States tech industry, I found it really reassuring and inspiring and refreshing, and like, oh, maybe there's an entire other world of people that really do care about the public good more than just profits. And that's deeply inspiring to me because, again, while I think that the tech could be so good, if we only design and deploy it based on profit incentives, it could get quite dark, as I'm sure many of you know better than I. So I'm really excited to meet people here, learn what the international community can do to potentially hold some of these American companies responsible. Some of them were there in Norway. I'm going to be totally honest, I don't think they were entirely genuine in their intentions there. I don't think they intend to really do anything other than pursue their profits unless they're forced to do so. And it feels to me like within this organization, there's perhaps some leverage to make that happen. And I'm really eager to hear how I can help with efforts like those.
Thank you, Jeff. Last but not least, Maria Fernandez, please.
Thank you, Senator. And I would like to add that besides the International one paper that the Leadership Panel published, we also published the outlook of the IGF future and the Leadership Panel WSIS+20 priorities that it was mentioned, but they are on the same page, you can find them. And since, just as this was saying, since 2022, one of the most meaningful evolutions in the IGF has been the way its visibility and strategic relevance has grown at the highest level. The Leadership Panel has played a central role in this shift, engaging directly with senior policymakers, UN leaders, and global institutions to ensure that the IGF insights inform the key processes such as the WSIS+20 review and the adoption of the global digital compact. And at the same time, the expansion and the maturing of the NRIs, the national and regional IGFs, have strengthened the IGF from the ground, bringing local realities into global discussion. But we continue
Excuse me, I think somebody's microphone is on. Do we know? Who's the host?
Someone can mute you.
It's the room in that room, because he's speaking to a crowd.
Ah, I
So
see.
it might be that group where there's no, it's not.
Okay, so what we continue to see is that the IGF unique value, which is a platform that is both globally credible, but at the same time locally grounded, and it's one of the increasingly influential in shaping how the international community approaches digital cooperation.
Thank you, Benga, first online speaker.
Thank you, everyone. It's great to be able to connect. 2022 is just 3 years away, but I think we've seen activities worth 30 plus years, generally in terms of the rise in adoption of technologies. Apparently, there's been a lot more conversation about artificial intelligence and other emerging technologies since then. The good news is that many of those conversations that became very popular in the last 3 years were conversations that were already happening at the Internet Governance Forums in previous years. And I think, this is important to note, because when many of those conversations became popular, it was very easy for the national, regional initiatives of the IGF to take these conversations not just at a global level, to take them down to the country level. And this is really important, because the structure and the model of the IGF is such that it allows natural bottom-up and even in the reverse order participation. So when you have conversations at the national level, they are then able to go to the sub-regional level and the regional level, and these conversations come to the global IGF. So that is one of the things that have happened since 2022, and I think that is pretty remarkable. The other is not just the increased participation from underserved communities. By that, I'm speaking about, countries in the global south. I'm speaking about young people. There are emerging opportunities for young people particularly to engage. And this is really important to me personally, because when the World Summit started in 2003, in 2005, I was a member of the Youth Caucus, and I literally just grew with the IGF, and with that process, it laid a foundation for my career. So it is really amazing to see a lot of young people building their careers, contributing to the IGF process and to the policy processes. And like, has been said already, we had a lot of global policy processes that happened between 2022 and now. And I am sure that many of them will define how we engage as we go forward into the next 5 years. The last 3 years have been fast-paced, but the other thing again is that we had a lot of abuse of technology in the last 3 years. Some deliberate abuse, including shutting down of the internet in certain countries, some of them for political reasons. We had, bad actors doing things online. But the good news about that is that it also led to an opportunity for civil society. I work in civil society, and in the last 3 years, we were able to learn a lot more about some of the technical issues, about some of the policy and political issues, and to create advocacy campaigns that would address some of these challenges. So it's been a mixed bag over the last 3 years, but I think that as an IGF community, we should be proud of the multi-stakeholder model and the opportunity for all of us to work together to advance emerging technologies, to advance opportunities, and to address the challenges that, of course, we cannot deny. Thank you.
Thank you very much for doing it. Christoph, please.
Thank you, Chengetai. Good morning, everyone. Since 2022, one of the most significant evolutions I have observed in the IGF ecosystem is the way the forum has become a bridge between local realities and global digital policy debates. what I see as particularly impactful is that this multi-stakeholder architecture is no longer only a principle, it has become a practical mechanism for translating community-level concerns into global visible issues. At the same time, the leadership panel's efforts to develop shared frameworks, such as mentioned already the Internet We Want paper, have provided a common language that help decision makers and communities navigate a rapidly changing digital landscape. This combination of bottom-up input and high-level strategic framing has strengthened, in my opinion, the IGF's role as trusted, coherent space for a dialogue. So in short, the IGF is not just expanding, in my opinion, it's becoming a more connected, more evidence-driven and more impactful platform for global digital cooperation. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Joseph. Now we go to the second segment of this session, and which is entitled Looking Back and Across the IGF in Practice. So the focus is what the leadership panel has learned since 2022, how the IGF actually works, and what urgent issues it is addressing. So my first question goes to Maria Fernanda. From your perspective, how has the IGF evolved, and what role did cross-ecosystem inputs, that's from the MAG, the national regional initiatives, the leadership panel, and also the intersessional work, play in that evolution?
Thank you, Shinata. We have seen how over the past 20 years, the IGF has transformed into a truly global platform. When the IGF first met in Athens in 2006, there were about 1,200 participants from 90 countries. Today, the IGF brings together more than 10,000 participants from 178 countries. And this is showing us how its convening power has expanded. The growth of the IGF is directly lifted to the strength of its wider ecosystem. And the Multi-Stakeholder Advisory Group, or known as MAG, which is responsible for its annual thematic focus, the agenda, has been ensuring that issues that are at the top of mind of the global community are brought front and center in these annual meetings. National, regional, and youth IGFs that are present now in more than 170 countries worldwide anchor these discussions locally, as my colleagues were just saying, bringing in perspective that global processes often overlook. The intersessional work through the dynamic coalitions, the best practices forums, and the policy networks ensure that the IGF is not just an annual event, but a continuous process producing viable year-round outputs and best practices. In 2022, the UN Secretary General added a new element to support this architecture, the IGF Leadership Panel, which was positioned to strengthen the IGF's visibility, its impact, and its strategic direction. It has been my absolute pleasure to serve as a member of the panel to help raise the IGF visibility in global debates and ensure the stronger links to broader UN processes, such as the Global Digital Compact or the WSIS+20 review we're going right now. Among our contributions to elevate the wealth of outputs of the IGF was, as mentioned, the Internet We Want framework, which provides a shared vision for open, inclusive, trustworthy, safe, and rights-respecting Internet, and can serve as a reference point for the IGF's future work. So looking back over 2 decades, what stands out most to me is that the IGF's success has never come from any single action or process. it has come from the collaborative strength of its entire ecosystem. The NRIs surface local priorities. The intersessional work deepens the expertise. The MAG organized this collective energy into an annual program, and the leadership panel amplifies outcomes and connects these outcomes to the global decision makers. So together, this ecosystem has produced a vast and valuable body of knowledge representing 20 years of multi-stakeholders insights on digital inclusion, on trust, on security, rights, and development. The challenge now, and also the opportunity, is to leverage its wealth of content more effectively through stronger communication, clearer messaging, and better follow-up. So the IGF insights are both heard in the global discussions and adopted by local communities and policymakers. So as we look ahead to the outcome of the WSIS+20 review tomorrow, and hopefully to the renewal of the IGF's mandate, the importance of collaboration across the IGF ecosystem will only grow. Each part depends on the strength of the others, and only by working together can we continue to deliver informed, inclusive, and coherent global digital policy discussions for the next 20 years and beyond. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Maria Fernandez. Please.
Yes.
How are the IGF and stakeholders framing issues such as AI governance, fragmentation, or digital sovereignty? And what has impacted levels of trust among stakeholder groups in these areas?
Yeah, that's a very difficult question, but I can handle it, yes. I think the IGF for a long time have been discussing emerging technologies. That has been there. It started out like a more technical community, or not community, but technical discussion on internet only. It has widened its scope into AI, into quantum, into all of the other things we see are coming up now. So what I see is that when you discuss at IGF, you also discuss at a multi-dimensional way. So it's both on the societal impact, it's on the technological impact, it's on the economic impact, it's on a lot of areas, and political impact. And you frame it in different ways. You have the international IGFs, but you also have the groups, the dynamic coalitions that work in between the meetings and also feed into this ecosystem. And I think that's important. You have those small groups that are discussing things and working on it in between the yearly meetings. You have the national and regional IGFs that are doing the same. So that kind of ecosystem of groups that are talking about it is important, not only for the discussion, but also for the trust and the understanding of what we do. And I also think that special mix of technical expertise, civil society, governments that are discussing things in a very broad and holistic manner is important. I see us a bit, IGF, as the canary in the coal mine. So we are the ones that are looking into what topics might create issues like fragmentation, like AI, like quantum. And I think that's a very, very important role we have as IGF. And we often see whatever is discussed there is actually popping up in governments. It's popping up also in regulation and other places. So I find that IGF has a role in making sure these dialogues are taking some of the edges out of the discussions. And those dialogues are based that we can talk together, we can listen, we can respect each other. So we better understand where the opponents are coming from, and also meeting each other as a multi multicultural, multinational, and also multi-stakeholder model, we need to embrace all kind of ways of working, but also all kind of opinions. But also, if I see it with my Xian hat on, we are a community of national research and education networks where every decision that is being taken on technology is hitting us very quickly and very hard. So if we are not part of those dialogues in the beginning, when they're kind of bubbling in the pot, I think we will lose some of the trust and some of the buy-in, which is important for us as all the citizens of the world. We need the trust in that technology is doing good. We need the trust in that we are trying to solve some of the issues Joseph mentioned earlier, that it might not all be good. How do we solve those together? And that trust is built by dialogue, but also collaboration in all the different parts of projects.
Thank you very much. Joe, what role can public storytelling and cultural influence play in strengthening digital rights and increasing awareness of global digital policy in spaces like the IGF?
Well, this is why I'm spending my time doing this kind of thing, because I do think that there's a role for narrative and culture to play in solving these problems. I'll give you an anecdote about some research that my team and I have done recently about American voter sentiment when it comes to regulating artificial intelligence. There's broad agreement across the entire political spectrum. Left-wing people, right-wing people, everyone tends to agree there ought to be laws and guardrails around this technology. But if you rank 40 issues and ask American voters, what do you think are the most important issues facing the country today? Regulating AI will be very low on that list. So even though there's broad agreement, there's low salience. I don't know if it's the case. I'm curious to learn if this is true in other places around the world as well. My assumption would be that maybe it is. And the reason is because it's not always obvious how these concerns about how our digital technology works really has such far-reaching and cascading effects to so many parts of our lives. It's not always obvious. It can seem like, well, what difference does it make? Instagram is just this thing that my kids look at sometimes for fun. How are you going to tell me that that's causing a rise in authoritarianism or polarization or whatever? It's not always obvious, I don't think, to everybody. And yet, I think it's fairly well documented that we're seeing these macro impacts from social media. And I think it's a pretty safe assumption that the impacts we've seen, some of the damaging side effects we've seen from social media, will only increase and become more intense with new AI technologies and services. So telling that story, trying to make it clear for people why is the use of this technology going to really matter to you in your real life, going to really matter to the issues that you care about, whether they're economic issues or they're issues of war in your region, or they're issues of your child's mental health. All of these things are impacted so heavily by this digital technology, but it's not always obvious how. And so to me, the role of culture and storytelling is to try to connect those dots. And this is the work that I've been doing with my team. And so I would encourage anybody, if you have insights, if you have, well, here's a bit of proof that we've been studying. We can show that this impacts these concerns in this way. I'd be happy to hear those concerns. I'd be happy to hear the insights that you are having. And the work that I'm doing is trying to translate those insights into more popularly accessible stories. This is, I'm working on this and have spun up a small but growing team working on this every day. So feel free to reach out with what stories you think would be good for the broader public to know, because this is the input we are looking for.
Thank you very much, Joe. Yes, awareness and connecting those impacts to the person is very, very important. Kubenga, what have the national and regional initiatives taught you about the diversity of digital realities across regions? And how has that shaped your understanding of global priorities? What does the scale of the IGF ecosystem, now with more than 170 national regional initiatives, mean for global digital cooperation?
Thank you. You know, the NRIs clearly demonstrates that there isn't one single global digital reality. And I think that happens a lot when we talk about, digital opportunities. There's a bit of assumption that it's the same thing, but obviously context definitely shapes experiences and priorities. While, some people may want to have conversations about, AI, other people want to, first of all, before having a conversation about AI, have a conversation about connectivity and about data protection. So this is one of the things we've seen at the NRIs. I mean, I've had a chance to engage with multiple national IGFs, especially on the African continent. And those, when you get into those rooms, you listen to the same word, you hear the word trust, and it's given a new meaning entirely. In fact, even digital inclusion is given a new meaning entirely in different places. And I think it's also great to see the regional differences, not just for the sake of the difference, but the sake of learning. Let me give a practical example that I gave last week in Brazil. In 2014, the Brazil IGF that led towards the Net Mundial process, also involving that, was very strongly involved in the Marco Civil being signed into law. That idea led to the process that gave rise to the Digital Rights and Freedoms Bill in Nigeria, Global South learning opportunities, and all around the NRIs. Also in terms of the global debate itself, not just national debates, not just regional debates. In terms of the global debates, debates are then rooted in lived experiences, and they don't become very abstract. Because the reality is that some of the conversations could be abstract without, talking about lived experiences, and grounding them in reality. And of course, this has shaped my view of global priorities. It's two things, if nothing else. One is that it's layered. There are things that are very strongly related to one another, and that are also connected. If you do not have conversations about basic data protection laws, then when you talk about AI regulation, you will realize that you jumped the gun. And by the way, the growth of the NRIs, in my own thinking, makes the IGF one of the largest bottom-up digital governance ecosystems, at least on our planet. I don't know, of other planets for now. And this scale shifts digital cooperation from top-down models, which were difficult, even also very expensive, towards distributed, networked governance models. And I believe that all of these lessons we've learned from the NRIs, and of course they will continue to grow. I imagine we may have as many as 200 NRIs in the next few months, and it will be great to see the impact that they also bring in terms of grounded national conversations, lived experiences, and making policy realistic and not just a vague process.
Thank you very much, Kubenga. And as you were saying, and of course other people were saying, that dialogue is very important, and also with the IGF, we're here to initiate dialogue and to facilitate dialogue. So I'd like to open the floor now to people. If you have any questions to any of the panelists on this section, please. And also online, you can just raise your hand if you have.
jump in?
Yes, Carol, please. Thank you very much for being the first.
Yes. Okay, so Carol Roche, but I'm going to speak on behalf of SIDS. There's quite a story there. The other day I was thinking, it's Christmas time, baking cakes. And I remember as a child, we were able to leave butter out on the table and it would not be a puddle of mess within an hour. And then you look at the Cat 5 hurricanes that we're trying not to get emotional here, Dorian and then Melissa. And we very rarely talk about the story of how technology has an effect on small island development countries. And sometimes, when people like to say, well, what keeps you up at night? And one of the things that keep me up at night is that maybe in the next 50 years, there won't be a Bahamas. So these are the type of things that the IGF brings to the table. Now, Joseph had made a comment with regards to being made aware that there are different conversations in different countries as compared to here. So how do we bring that to the forefront? How do we make the Global South, the SIDS, to be heard more? How do we get the unheard voices within the Global North to be heard? And I think that is something pressing that we as the IGF should bring forward. And I'd like to hear your views.
Who would like to take that?
Well, I can start. Because obviously when working on the IGF 2025, that was a large part of the discussions. I think that in order for IGF, like the Unity Forum, to be relevant, we need to have participants from all over the world to join in on those discussions, because it will make the output a lot stronger. And there are a few things we can do, of course, to make that happen. One thing is the financial part of it. But I think, again, a little bit back to what I said earlier, that the topics of the forum also needs to be perceived as relevant to all parts of the world, even though not every session, of course, but that there has to be sessions that also tap into the real challenges from all over the world, which might be different in some cases to other parts of the world. So I think both like the financial part, but also the real agenda to make it relevant in order for people to want to participate.
I think Mariana touched upon a very important part, and that's relevance. And relevance is not only on the topics we discussed, but also the outcome of the discussion. Are they bringing something tangible? And I think that's part of what we also have in our recommendation, in our report to the Secretary General, is be more tangible in the results we're achieving. Also back a bit to your suggestion, Carol, on the real life examples that are important for us. That shows us what is it that technology do of good and bad.
If I may, yeah.
I have my hand up, but I think no one sees the screen. I have my hand up for a while.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So I just wanted, again, without repeating a lot of what is said, we all know now that the world is not going to be the same again with the advent of AI and all that is happening around the world. But unlike many other technologies like the internet itself and telecommunication, where the world moved very fast into having a common set of standards, today in AI, we have a complete divergence of standards for Europe, the US, and I think we've seen also some developments recently that, in terms of where the internet will be governed, the AI will be governed there. We have seen also many, many countries around the world coming up with their own regulations. So I think what we're doing in the IGF is very important, because at the end of the day, for the majority of people in the world, AI is going to be delivered to them over the internet. I mean, AI is going to also live in other systems where people don't see it or feel it or touch it, but in many, many ways, AI is going to be delivered in the internet the same way content is delivered today, the same way a search is delivered. Everybody is going to face that, and comes with it issues of trust, whether it's the AI bias that we all talk about, whether it's about fake content that is also will affect people in their lives and affect public opinions. And add to that we already have a digital divide between the global north and the global south. And with AI, we are expecting, given the amount of connectivity that's needed, the amount of compute that is needed, rather than thinking that this is something that will close the divide, we are at risk of having an ever more growing divide in that sense. So sorry, I couldn't intervene earlier, but just happy to say these few words. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ajay.
Well, I was just going to say that Joe mentioned something that, I have been underlying since the first time I take part of the leadership panel, and it's the way we communicate, the way we tell the story. We obviously, everything we're going to discuss about the governments and everything is extremely important, but if we really want to have impact, and it's the same with climate change. I mean, our minds are not there as human beings to address issues that are like in the long term, where you have so much stress in issues at the moment. So if we do not find a way to communicate clearly and by emotions, which is the way people behave and react, the importance about all of the issues we discussed here, then we will never get the whole public engaged, and the government, if it's not important for the population, as you were mentioning, it's not going to be important. So thank you for being here. We hope you help us with that.
And can you please introduce yourself?
Yes, of course. My name is Christian. I am part of the Young AI Leaders. I run our San Francisco chapter. It's a global organization on the day I forget. I think my reflection on this and IGF in general is the intersection of issues that we have spoken about in relation to technology and AI and relevance. I think in speaking on behalf of you, not young of you, but like as a youth myself, we often talk about labor security. Zach's Meta, ChatGPT, and Anthropic, their promise is that they are going to automate several of future potential opportunities and the labor force in general. But where does that leave us, right? Where is our conversation from an economic standpoint? Those are the intersections that matter. There's a point for young people to be involved in policymaking when it comes to social media regulation or governance. But when you don't consider intersections with the economy and mental health, for example, in my organization, I'm leading a research project to understand the impact of AI mental health. There's already been a lot of stories in the New York Times, in Fortune, in Time magazine around young people looking for mental health support with AI. When we have psychologists, we have social workers who are trained and experts in the field that can support these individuals, but they feel a sense of trust that is lacking in our current institutions. So my question is, how are we going to bridge these type of intersections of salient issues? And how can we meaningfully leverage young people in a way that we can actually make them as catalysts? We have seen democracy movement in Nepal and Bangladesh. In terms of the impact of AI. So I don't see AI as a detriment in all of it all, but there is a true opportunity where young people are trying their best to understand what this is for them and what can we do for it. And part of my research is to look at, in developing countries and developed countries, of what the perception of this technology is. So how are we going to build that intersection so that people actually care? Right? Like there's only so much from a technical standpoint, from a government standpoint, of what we can do when it comes to these evolved technologies, especially when you have technology companies like Meta and Google being essentially the forerunners of all of these conversations.
Thank you for your question. And your insights, observations. Yes, please.
I have a question. My name is Farah Kalia from South Africa. I run an organization called
Yes.
My name is Farah Kalia. I'm from South Africa. I run an organization called Women Who Vote. My question is, you mentioned the strength of NRIs in 178 countries. And I wonder, are they all playing equal footing? And in future, what is the IGF going to do to make sure that the voices are equal when they come to the global IGF?
Good question. Who would like to take question one? Take question two.
Well, I can tell you that not all of the regional and national IGFs are the same. They are not established. This is an authentic grassroots movement. When the IGF was created at the beginning, this was not foreseen. They just started coming up as a necessity, a real necessity to connect the global discussions to the local reality. So none of them, it's not like the IGF has a guideline for the NRIs. Because every country has different situations. But the idea, the minimum is that all of the actors, all of the players, civil society, the community, business, and governments work together in their own countries according to their realities, but have access to all the wealth of knowledge that is produced at the global level. Basically, I don't know if you want to.
No, and we also have calls. I think it's bi-monthly calls with the coordinators as well, so they can share experiences, etc., and discuss issues and problems. The IGF Secretariat, I think Anya Gengo, I saw her, but she might have gone. She's the coordinator in the office, and she has calls with them. We do have a toolkit as well, and each year for the annual meeting, we have a discussion and a session for the national and regional initiatives. So we try and keep and help them to advance, help them to facilitate discussions within their countries, within the institutions. And yes, as Maria Fernandez says, they're not all at the same levels. You know, some have it, some have structure, some have a legal structure as well. And so it's very easy for us to deal with them since they do have a legal structure. Some don't, and we are helping each other. I won't say we're helping them, but we're helping each other. It's a two-way street. Yes.
Can I add a sentence on what you said? I was appreciative the parliamentarians because I know you've got a parliamentarian track.
Yes.
When you can encourage those parliamentarians to go back and work with NRIs.
Yes.
I see a gap there. And if it could just be fixed, because the parliamentarians have bigger strength in countries than the NRI. Sometimes NRI is strong, but they're facing local challenges of governance. But if they have the parliamentarians, knocking on doors for them in the government and saying, let's support this structure.
Yes. Yeah, no, you're quite right. At the regional level, I think we do have that back and forth between the stakeholder groups, but not in most national levels. And I think it's very important, as they say, good governance begins at home. So let's do that. Yes, please.
I was wondering if I could add to the two questions.
And that'll be the final question because we have to go to the next.
Of course. My name is Nadia Chefia. I'm here on behalf of the United Nations University. My research is on meaningful youth participation in internet governance, and my case study is the Internet Governance Forum. But for most people in this room, you will probably know me as a member of the European Secretariat. I organize the European Youth IGF, which is called Youth Big. I would like to comment on your question about how do we bridge these intersections of salient issues. What I think is the most wonderful thing about the Internet Governance Forum is that because it's a bottom-up approach, you get to submit your topics and issues. So every region will do it differently, but in Europe, you get to submit an issue, and all the people who submitted an issue have overlapping interests, etc. They come together and they design a session together. So a youth input is then contributed. Every region does their sections differently, but also at the IGF, you can submit your sessions where you, with other youth stakeholders or other stakeholders who are interested in that topic, you can bring all those different components, whether or not that's economic or political. So if in the future you are interested in submitting an issue, please don't hesitate to reach out. I would love to help out and make sure that that you have the opportunity to contribute yourself in a way that addresses the issues that you're concerned with. Because as mentioned before, it's about local issues that are being brought into the global discussions, and facilitating youth participation in these spaces is one of the areas that I support in. I also wanted to briefly comment on how can we include voices equally at the IGF, and those are, as mentioned before, very different for different regions. A comparison I'd like to make, I do not speak for Jenna from the Asia Pacific, but Jenna organizes the regional event for the Asia Pacific, and her approach and mine are very different when we walk into the Internet Governance Forum with the people from my community. My community, European community, are really integrated into the European community spaces. We have a booth there that we converge, and she also has a booth there where we all converge, and we meet other stakeholders there that support telling people where to go to their sessions, but also supporting them to speak in events. So she reaches out to people and tells them, look, these are the sessions that are really interesting, that you can contribute to. These are topics that we've been talking about. Please do contribute, and they can test their questions, they can test ideas before they actually speak in public, and they round the community around them to do that. The European stakeholders are a little more independent, in which that they go to these sessions and they just want to know what room they need to be in. And then they actually take a moment that when everybody is able to address Chingatai during the open mic session, they will state their issues and concerns directly in the open mic in front of all policymakers, and address Chingatai directly about the issues that European stakeholders see. So for everyone, there's a different pathway into the Internet Governance Forum, and people like me and Jenna, but also many others are IGF coordinators on national levels who come together at the IGF Youth Track, led formerly by Anja. And I think Herman is now being integrated to build that further. There's an entire support system for young people to be integrated, and I hope that we can continue this discussion.
Thank you very much. Okay, we'll go to the next segment. We'll be slightly over time a little bit. That's okay. So the next final segment is looking forward, the IGF after WSIS+20. So my first question is to go to Marianne. How can the IGF's existing strengths, including its local reach through the national and regional initiatives and its diverse expert community, be leveraged to make IGF outputs clearer, more actionable, and more visible to decision makers, particularly in the WSIS+20 and GDC follow-up?
Well, first of all, I think I want to acknowledge also all the work being done in the IGF community in sharing the valuable outputs in the many channels. It's certainly a significant progress being made, because often the IGF outputs, they remain within like the multi-stakeholder space without necessarily clear pathways into national or international policy processes. And I think we need some more structured mechanism in order to bridge that gap. And policymakers and as politicians, we need often concise, actionable outputs. And here NRIs can play a crucial role in translating these discussions into practical recommendations tailored to their unique national situations. It will make the IGF contributions more tangible and easy to adopt. And as an example, for example, different regions has different challenges when it comes to infrastructure. And at IGF, we can get together, we can learn from each other's experiences and take inspiration and bring it back to the national and regional level to adapt these initiatives and the current needs. And I also think that, for example, when we worked on the program for the IGF 2025, protecting children online was very high importance to us. And I spent, and I know all the other Norwegian delegates as well, or representatives spent every opportunity we had to talk about the need for a social media ban for children. And I'm not giving credit to that effort or the IGF, but later on, you know, we can see that the movement has really grown in Europe in terms of the need for an age limit on social media. And I think that the IGF is an example of an arena where issues like that can be put on the agenda. Because as politicians, you know, we have a lot we want to do in order to make the world a better place, but it's all about prioritizing. And the IGF and our NRIs and various, like the IGF community, can help us prioritize the right and the most important things. And also, where possible, another thing is that the IGF effort should also try to align with the key decision-making cycles, such as UN resolutions, EU directives, or national strategy reviews. Early and timely engagement will ensure that the insights influence the decisions rather than come in later. And we talked a little bit about that kind of communication or feedback loops that we need, that IGF should feed into policy, but policymakers should also recognize and disclose how IGF outputs have been used. This creates opportunities for improvements, it demonstrates impacts, and strengthens also the relevance for the work. So at least those.
Thank you very much. So I'm just going a little bit faster because all the time. Joe, how can the IGF's future work better reflect the concerns people actually have about AI, data use, platform power, and not just for policy priorities?
One thing I'm really curious about, and to me it seems one of the biggest potential goods that this tech can bring, large language models, is something I've heard called broad listening, which I imagine some of you have heard of. These tools like Talk to the City. I've in fact seen it. There was a candidate for Tokyo governor last year named Takahiro Anno, I think was his name. But he had an incredible tech stack to hear from people what they were thinking about. And I am not an engineer, nor really a technologist, but to me it seems, you know, we spend a certain amount of time expressing concern over some of the downsides of this technology. Maybe the answer to this question of how can we really know that we're hearing from people what their real concerns are could be, maybe there's ways to use the technology in new and exciting ways to do that broad listening and hear from people at scale what they are hoping for.
Thank you very much, John. The next is Govinga. Looking ahead, what aspects of the IGF ecosystem should be sustained or strengthened after WSIS+20?
Very quickly, I think I'll say, of course, the intersessional work is very clear. That is what makes the IGF a process and not just an event that happens and then we wait for the next edition of it. What happens between every IGF is really critical. But I'll even focus a lot more on the NRIs. I think that the NRIs offers an opportunity not just to understand bottom-up processes, not just to surface what is relevant and people's lived realities to make policy relevant to them, but there's a lot that we can learn from how those multi-stakeholder processes work in countries. They are organic, they are bottom-up, they address the issues, and where we can, we should definitely make sure we identify and support the leaders of these processes, participate in these processes, and of course, mention them where they may be able to get some support.
Thank you very much, Dega. Yes, it's very important to get to the base level, to the grassroots level. I think that's very important. Maria Fernanda, how can the IGF help ensure that the follow-up to these global processes remains inclusive, open, and grounded in multi-stakeholder input? What new forms of engagement or collaboration could help?
Thank you, Singapore. And the IGF's bottom-up setup is a very valuable asset. It allows the governments, the industry, the civil society, and the technical community to meaningfully engage on equal footing. Because the IGF does not negotiate text or make binding decisions. It enables for a transparent, open, and evidence-based conversations. And this is essential when we're navigating complex issues that require broad trust, such as the future of the digital cooperation. And that is why the IGF is a unique channel that can help support the implementation of the WSIS+20 outcomes. We have been talking about more than 170 NRIs that are worldwide. And the IGF has a direct and unparalleled line to communicate to the communities in this global process, and it often struggles to reach them, including the youth, the SMEs, the local governments, and the voices from underrepresented regions. So this network, the NRIs and the IGF, ensure that the follow-ups of the WSIS+20 remains rooted in the lived experience of people everywhere. The IGF can also strengthen its existing transparency and accountability by establishing structured follow-up mechanisms, drawing on frameworks like the Internet we Want to track the progress annually and identify the gaps in implementation and best practices. And the informal multi-stakeholder sounding board that was created during this WSIS+20 review is bringing together the IGF Leadership Panel, the MAC, and has proven to be a very effective model to ensuring continuous representative input into the global digital policy discussions. It demonstrates that the IGF has this ability to convene diverse expertise quickly and credible. And it's a reflection on and a proof on why the IGF's openness is one of its greatest assets. So all discussions are multi-stakeholder, are globally accessible, ensuring that no single perspective dominates the narrative on digital governance. And this transparency supports legitimacy and encourages more accountable policy making. So to ensure that the WSIS+20 follow-up truly benefits from this rich structure, we must also strengthen the way the IGF outcomes are communicated, as I was saying before, with clear messaging and better packaging of outputs that will help ensure they are heard, not only inside the UN processes, but also by the communities that rely on them. If we support properly and resource the IGF, it can serve as an anchor for global digital cooperation, inclusive, transparent, community-informed, and grounded in 20 years of multi-stakeholder expertise. Because it is precisely this convening power that makes the IGF indispensable to the future of digital governance.
Thank you very much. My next question goes to Vice Minister Imagwa and also to her team. How do we ensure that the dialogue around technologies, around AI, quantum computing, for example, are open, coordinated, and meaningful?
Your question, I think, has three components: openness and coordination and meaningfulness. Already covered these issues one by one. First, openness. From our experience hosting the IGF in Kyoto, I witnessed the true strengths of a multi-stakeholder model. So Kyoto was a milestone. It showed that when governments, industry, academia, and civil society come together, we create a space for inclusive and future-oriented dialogue. The diversity of voices from NRI to youth initiatives proves that IGF is not just a forum, but a global ecosystem. This inclusive approach must remain at the heart of IGF's work after WSIS+20. The second, coordination. Openness alone is not enough. We need coordination that respects innovation while addressing risks. Too often, regulatory response come late, or even worse, too early and stifle innovation. So premature regulation can slow progress and limit opportunities. Instead, we should promote voluntary governance frameworks that allow innovation and risk management to advance together. The Hiroshima AI process is a very good example. Rather than imposing rigid rules before technologies mature, it brings together government, industry, and experts to develop principles and practical codes of conduct for safe and secure and trustworthy AI. It emphasizes transparency, accountability, and security while leaving enabling environment for innovation. During the negotiation on Hiroshima process, we leveraged a lot of learnings from our experience in event governance and reflected them in the guiding principle. Therefore, IGF can play a similar role for other emerging technologies, including quantum, ensuring global dialogue remains coordinated and constructive. Third, meaningfulness. Dialogue must be meaningful, not only to policymakers, but to people from all communities. Emerging technologies raise profound questions about ethics, security, and trust, alongside benefits. IGF discussion should reflect these real concerns, not just abstract policy priorities. So to achieve this, IGF outputs must become more visible and actionable for decision makers. The leadership panel recommendation point to practical steps, strengthening NRIs, expanding intersessional work, and deepening links to UN processes such as the DBC. These mechanisms can bridge the gap between discussion and implementation, making IGF's work more impactful and relevant. As we move beyond WSIS+20, let me reaffirm IGF's role as a convener of trust even in a fragmented digital world. By sustaining its multi-stakeholder foundation and embracing innovative governance approaches, IGF can remain future-ready and ensure that global digital cooperation is open, coordinated, and meaningful for all. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Vice Minister. Hatem?
Yeah, so I think talking about the dialogue, I think the most important thing, and that's what we do in IGF, is having a multi-stakeholder approach. So we have government, industry, civil society, everybody is talking together, and this is our modus operandi. So I think this is going to be essential into getting this dialogue going, and we are doing this now. I think the other thing is trying to work together to have guiding frameworks. So I think, as I said in my earlier intervention, there are so many approaches now. So I think we need to try to bring people closer together without either having, you know, the big ambition from the industry or the geopolitical, let's say, agendas that are there at the moment, which also, I think, takes us into the question of open platforms. So I think for this to succeed, like the internet is open. And I think this is what we started, you know, the internet, we want paper with an open internet. And I think today we have so many systems, some of them are more open and transparent than others. And I think openness is going to be very important, both openness in terms of use, but also openness in terms of transparency of what drives it below the, let's say, below the hood, to be able also to weed out any biases or other things. And last but not least is education, whether education from as young as schools, but even sometimes education to policymakers and different stakeholders into how can we bring these things to get humanity the best of it and avoid as many as we can of the risks. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Hatem, for those points. Next is Christoph, please. What would make global digital cooperation and the work of the IGF feel more relevant and visible to communities outside the traditional policy areas, spaces.
Thank you, Chengetai. A lot has already been said. However, I would like to add a few points. So, ladies and gentlemen, over the past few years, we have seen that the global digital cooperation is becoming more complex, more political, and more deeply connected with people's everyday lives. Yet for many communities outside traditional policy spaces, the IGF still feels distant, important to principle, but not clearly connected to their practical concerns. So the question is, what would make the IGF more relevant, more visible, and more important to them? First, we need, in my opinion, to translate global discussions into real practical value for people and institutions operating at the local level. Issues such as AI governance, data use, online safety, platform power are no longer abstract. They shape how small businesses operate, how young people learn, how public administration function, and how specific communities access opportunities. The IGF ecosystem already includes different activities, but the next step is to ensure that the outputs of IGF, I mean recommendations, insights, or best practices, are presented in a way that communities can use and act on. Second, the IGF needs to strengthen its role as a connector between community-led innovation and global policy making. Around the world, civic technologists, local entrepreneurs, youth innovators, and grassroots organizations are developing solutions long before policies catch up. Yet these groups often feel invisible in high-level discussions. If the IGF had clearer ways of highlight these voices, for example, through labs, challenges, or local dialogues, people would better see their work reflected. Third, we need to rethink communication, in my opinion. The IGF produces a significant amount of knowledge, but much of it remains within expert cycles. If you want broader relevance, communication has to evolve